What you focus on.
Mm.
And I'm looking at him like, but the chessboard, like why would you, if you can play chess like that, then you already know that if somebody's making you angry, there may be a chance he's trying to make you angry. He's trying to get you out of your character. He's trying to get you in trouble. He may be jealous of you. He may not like the fact that you're so smart. He may not like the fact that you have both parents at home. He may not like the fact, you don't know.
Right.
And so why would you allow anyone in life to move your pieces for you? And he just looked at me and
But
he had no answer.
I love what you did, Steve, because and they always say the most challenging ones, they were like, those are the ones, right? Those are the brightest ones, right?
Always.
But one thing that I observed while you were speaking, what came to me was you saw something that the child was really gifted in, that he was really good, right? But when you find when your kids have that one piece of area and you know that they're good in, us as parents, we should take heed to that and we should use that as leverage. Like, listen, like you just said to him, but you're awesome. You know, another thing you could say to him, but when you are angry, why don't you take it out on the chessboard? You see, because that teach him how to transfer his energy. And when you can teach a child how to transfer their energy, that also helps them build up their confidence. And it makes them also come into awareness, because the more confidence you have, the more you step into awareness, then you're going to start seeing things through different lenses. So I love what you just did, right? So that was just one thing. But Steve, if you can give us like maybe 2 or 3 things that maybe parents can do to help increase that child's awareness and self-confidence.
Okay. I will say this, and this is just off the cuff, because there's a lot of things we can do, but
Right.
just off the cuff. The first thing is we have to get back to we have to get back to our roots. Our roots is that it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing we got to get back to. It's not your child. It's our child. That's and other people in the community have to start taking this on. That's not her child or his child. It's not their child. It's our child. This is our child in our neighborhood. And that we have to work together to raise our children. Because by collectively doing that, we then pull from all of our collective experiences.
Right.
And we can teach these children all of our collective experiences. Now, the flip side to that is that means you have to be conscious about who you have around your child. That's a whole nother part of it.
Absolutely.
There are too many parents out there right now who let their kids out in the street and they don't particularly think about anything else. They don't think about who they're with. They don't think about who they're around. They're just happy to have a couple of free moments so they can hang out in the house while their child is out playing. Right. Parenting is 24/7, every minute, every hour, even when they're not around you. That's a whole nother conversation.
Right. That's a whole nother episode.
Yes. So, one is getting back to the concept of it takes a village to raise a child and working together, not just with other people in your neighborhood, but utilize your teachers. Your teachers are actually parents of your children by definition, and by law. And it's funny, people don't understand this. When I became an administrator in the school system, we started studying case law around issues like what roles the teachers have. And effectively, teachers are parents of the children during the day, which means there's certain things that they are responsible for your child more hours of the week than you are. I hope everybody heard that.
Right.
For more hours of the week than you are, when they are in school, they are responsible for their children, for your children. So you have to work with teachers. If your teacher is calling you and telling you that little Johnny is not, doing what he's supposed to do, instead of flipping out at the teacher and talking about what the teacher needs to do better, take a listen, because that teacher is trained. Now, are there bad teachers out there? Of course there are. There are bad CEOs out there. There are bad policemen out there. There's bad everything out there. That's not the point. When you start focusing on that as the point, you're missing the point. It's not about whether or not there's a group of bad teachers out there. What it's about is that your child's teacher is telling you something about your child that you need to pay attention to, because they're spending the time, energy, money, everything. Money. I mean, there are teachers spending money out of their pockets to teach your child. So you really have got to pay attention to what these teachers are saying and work with them. That's another thing. So, village to take a child, it takes a village to raise a child, work with your teachers. The other thing is, you already mentioned it. Finding out the interests of your child isn't just an exercise. What you're really doing is your children have interest in very specific things because they're discovering their purpose.
Right.
We don't think of it that way. It's all about, everything that children are doing is about discovering their purpose. The reason why they have interest in different things at different times is because they're on this journey to figure out why they're here on this planet in the first place. And one of the things that parents have to become aware of is that everybody has a purpose, and that the way you discover your purpose is by finding out the things that you're naturally drawn to. What are you naturally skilled at? When your children are showing you natural skills that they don't even have to train for, they just know how to do it, you are working towards discovering why they're here on this planet in the first place. Because all of us are gifted with skill. Every single person walking on this earth is gifted with something that relates to why we're here. And so being conscious of that takes your parenting game to a whole different level, because now you're having conversations with them besides, did you do your homework? Did you take out the trash like I told you to? Now you're having conversations that are real and meaningful.
Right.
You're spending time with them around their interests. It's draining. It takes a lot of time. It means traveling. It means money. It means a lot of things. But as a parent, it's your role to make sure if they want to join the baseball team, then you find out what's the best baseball team in the area, and you make sure your child is playing baseball, period. End of story. If that means you have to, spend some extra money to get some bats and gloves and some cleats, then that's what you got to do. If it means you got to spend some money so that they can join the traveling team, then that's your role as the parent. And do it gladly, because these kids did not ask to be here.
You read about that? That was number 2, right?
Yes, that was, yes.
Okay.
So
you got one more for us?
Let's see. What would be another thing? Listen, this, and you'll notice these are all related. It's not like they're all separate things. They're all related. But the thing is, listen to your children. That's a big one, because this is big. Raise your children to have voices.
Yes.
We were raised, I don't know about you, but I'll talk about me. In my generation, we were raised that as children, we did not have a voice. You were not to be seen or heard unless spoken to.
Exactly.
Sorry, that was wrong. That was completely wrong, because what it does is it raises children to not have their voice even as adults, because they don't know how to switch that on. You can't just tell them you don't speak unless you're spoken to. You don't say anything unless you're spoken to. If you do that to your child, they will not know how to flip on that switch when they become adults, and they will be timid and they will get run over by other people on this world. So teach your children to have a voice and to speak. Now, of course, there's a level of respect that they have to have for you as their parent. Teach them what the boundaries are around that, but teach them that if there's something you have on your mind, you got to get something off your chest. Even if I don't like what you have to say, come tell me. I'd rather you told me, and then we can have the conversation. I'll give you a perfect example of that. I grew up in the South Bronx. I wound up going to a prep school called Phillips Academy up in the Boston area. Rich kids that literally had trust funds. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, because I just was not ready I wasn't used to it. I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
But here I am, right? And the very first vacation was Thanksgiving. That first Thanksgiving, I couldn't come home. I had to stay in the Boston area. And so a friend of mine who was Jewish, he asked me if I wanted to come to his home for the holiday. And I said, sure, thank you. Go to his home. Now, he had a little brother and he had a little sister, mom and dad. So the first thing was, now for me, unfortunately, where I grew up in the Bronx, I only knew one kid that had his dad in the home. That's a whole nother conversation. My dad was killed when I was 7 months old. I was fortunate that I had my grandfather. He was my male role figure. So the first thing that was odd was that when I got up the first morning that I was there, everybody sat and ate breakfast together. That was the first thing that was odd. Like my mom and I, we never did that. We never sat and ate together. She always made breakfast for me. I would sit and eat and she would do whatever she was doing. Now that's what she knew to do, right? That's who she was, right? And so the first thing was everybody sat together at the table. And so if you can imagine, for a 14-year-old as a Black kid from the Bronx, I'm sitting here with a Jewish family up in Massachusetts, and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of looking around the table like, why are we all sitting here? What is going on, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is we had bagels and lox. I had never heard of lox before, and it's just a type of fish that you have on the bagel, salmon, I think it is. And no, lox is lox. It's that type of fish. And so I'm sitting there like, lox? They said, would you like some bagels and lox? I was like, sure. So the second thing I learned was that explore the people around you, explore the different cultures around you. As a Black person from the Bronx, what I discovered later was that I was educating myself.
Right.
And I was preparing myself for a world outside of the Bronx. That's another thing that we need to do for our children, is prepare them for the world outside of their neighborhoods, that it's a huge world out there that they are part of. They are part of that world community. And to stop thinking of themselves as just part of this neighborhood or just part of being Black people. You're part of a world community. And so that they taught me that. Second thing that was the other thing that was fascinating was that, now this will tell you how long ago this was. I actually had hair then. So the father, I swear this was something out of a 1950s TV show. So we're sitting there, the father's at the head of the table, of course. And he's reading a newspaper. Mom is making breakfast. She's pouring his coffee for him. She's getting everybody their breakfast, and he's reading this article in the paper. And then he goes, that's interesting. And he starts reading some snippets of this article that he's reading out loud to the family. And he asks, well, I don't know if it should be that way. What do you guys think? And they actually sat there and discussed, this news article, what was going on in the world.
Right.
Those are conversations I never had with the adults in my family. We didn't talk about what was going on, the news, what was in the newspaper. We didn't talk about that stuff.
Right.
That's something we've got to become more conscious of, right? Implanting them into the world through we got to pay attention, especially in today's news environment in which we're in these silos. You have conservative news, you have liberal news. Like that was not the case back then.
Right.
Back then the standard was the news was supposed to be impartial. It's not that way anymore. We're literally being siloed, and we have to start having our kids pay attention to that and what that means to them. So the last thing I'll say about this is the thing that fascinated me most was that it was the little brother. He had to be like 8 years old. He was the first one to chime in.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, he was like, I think blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this kid, and he sounds like a 30-year-old. And I'm like, and what he said was making sense. Like it literally, like it made sense. And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, I guess he is right about that. And I'm sitting there like taking in what this 8-year-old is saying and processing it about and learning from this 8-year-old. Right. About something that's happening in the news. And we need to get to that. We need to get to the point where we're having conversations around what's happening in the world around us, not just in our communities, but around the world, because these conversations are being had outside of our neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
And the issue is our children will compete against those children for careers, for jobs, for political office, et cetera, for power. And we have to prepare our children to compete.
Oh my gosh, Steve, you said a mouthful. Everything that you have given today, it was really insightful. It was helpful. I know even for me it was, and a lot of things that you have said is some of the things that I'm doing with my children. So it helps me to know that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right things. We are running out of time, but before we leave, I just want to say a couple of things. I want to say shout out to the South Bronx.
Hey,
thank you, Steve.
Boogie down. Yes, boogie down, baby.
A Bronx bomber here. right?
right.
Another thing is too, I want to say thank you to all the educators. You guys are impeccable. And I have to say this too, because a lot of people in our community, sometimes they feel a certain way. There's nothing wrong with having an IEP for your child that gives them a little bit more time on areas that they need to be focused on. It's just going to help cultivate them. I had this experience with both of my children, and all their teachers were wonderful. So I am grateful that I was in the correct district, that I had this support with my children. And Steve, yes, you are right. Let's get back to saying that the community is more than just us. You know, I think for the people that's in my life that play a part in my children's life, that also, you know, intercede when I'm not there, or intercede when and say, hey, you know, she let me just take this because I said you got a lot on your plate. A lot of people don't do that no more. So I appreciate that. I still appreciate having my mother around. You know, appreciate your
Amen.
parents. Listen, let me
A
tell you
blessing.
something, because you said a mouthful. They wasn't perfect. The only thing that our parents did, they probably mostly duplicated what they saw and they seen. So now that we have ability to have access to technology, which has advanced so much, there is no excuses at all. And the third thing I want to say is watch your mouth, because like Steve said, you know, words, and I said from the beginning, words have power. You are speaking into your children. These are people that's going to turn into adults. Okay, so you know, we say at least we can say, you know what, at least I raised decent human beings. The rest is pretty much up to them, their career, how they do things. But when you know you raise decent human beings, that should be the goal and the key to your children. And before we leave, Steve, tell everybody what you do and how can they reach you.
Absolutely. So I'm a mindset coach, and what I do is very succinctly is I help people rise to the lives that they dream of, and I do that through individual and group coaching. And so you can find me on steveberlack.com. That's STEVE. And so Berlack is BERLACK.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel as well. Just look for me there. And I'm on Facebook. I'm on social media. Come on over. If you're interested in finding out more, by all means, I welcome all to come. And if you're interested in getting help, I help people rise to the lives they dream of. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting, trying to get to these lives that they envision. They can't figure out why. And what I do is I help them get past the things that keep them from getting for what they envision.
Awesome. I thank you, Steve. Thank you for sharing your information. And for
Yes.
those, continue to follow me at the Lady K Chat Podcast. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram. And you can also visit our website at www.ladykay, and K is spelled Kay, enterprises.com. I'm sorry, enterprisesinc.com. But we offer a plethora of services and business development. So you can take a look at us there. If you go on our Instagram page and you click in the bio, you will have the link, and it will take you to our website and all our other following pages. But again, everyone, thank you for being here with us tonight. It was a pleasure again, Steve, having you here. And we will see you next Tuesday here again at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Lady K.
Lady K.